Hello, my name is Maria Hartman, and I'm an instructor and student teaching coordinator in the program for the education of the deaf and hard of hearing at Teachers College, Columbia University. I am also a New York State certified teacher of the deaf and hard of hearing and taught elementary age deaf children for many years before coming to university teaching. As we learned in the webinar on hearing loss, it is most likely that deaf and hard of hearing people are members of all the communities we belong to, whether those communities are our neighborhoods, our social gathering places, or houses of worship. In this webinar, we will look at particular understandings that support inclusivity of people who are deaf and hard of hearing in a variety of settings. Working towards inclusivity implies an awareness of and an openness to the unique characteristics of the community of people with hearing loss. A first step might be to provide organization-wide in-service training for staff and community members that includes information about hearing loss and deaf culture. Another step could be to invite deaf and hard of hearing people in to talk about their work and experiences. You might also obtain and provide access to captioned documentaries about deaf people and the deaf community, stories told in American Sign Language, and performances in ASL to share with the entire community. An example is Oded Adomi Lashem's Voices of El Sayed, a documentary that depicts a small Bedouin community in the Negev Desert on the outskirts of Israel that also happens to be the home of the largest deaf community on the planet. Because of the community's large deaf population, the villagers of El Sayed no longer see deafness as a handicap. The villagers, in fact, have evolved their very own sign language, and most of the people in El Sayed, whether hearing or not, are fluent in the language. A second step toward creating inclusive environments involves providing access to communication. Deaf and hard of hearing people may use speech only, or sign language only, or a combination of both in their interactions with others. Other strategies include listening, speech reading, use of sign language interpreters, captioning, and FM amplification systems. In the next slides, we'll learn about communicating with deaf or hard of hearing people in a variety of situations. In situations where you are communicating one-to-one with a person with hearing loss, keep these strategies in mind. Get the deaf or hard of hearing person's attention before speaking. A tap on the shoulder, a wave, or another visual signal is appropriate. Look directly at the person when speaking. Avoid turning away. This helps the deaf person maintain focus on your face and supports speech reading. Speak evenly and clearly, but do not yell, exaggerate, or overpronounce words. Exaggeration and overemphasis of words distorts lip movements, making speech reading more difficult. When communicating with a deaf person using a sign language interpreter, remember to maintain eye contact with the deaf person. Eye contact conveys the feeling of direct communication. Even if a sign language interpreter is present, continue to speak directly to the deaf person. He or she will turn to the interpreter as needed. Use the words I and you when communicating through an interpreter. Do not use phrases such as tell him or does she understand? The interpreter is there as a conduit and not as a participant. Speak to the deaf person as if it were only the two of you present. If you participate in or want to develop more inclusive group situations, such as meetings, classes, or lectures with deaf or hard of hearing people, the following tips will make communication easier. First, ask the deaf person to choose the best seating for communication. This usually means a seat near the speaker so that the deaf person can see the speaker's lips. If possible, use a round table or semicircular seating so that he or she can see everyone's face. Use of a round or oval table during meetings will facilitate the line of sight between people, as will semicircular seating arrangements. Usually the deaf person will know best where to sit. Also take into consideration the area's lighting so that the speaker is illuminated clearly. Captioning is another way to provide access to communication. A deaf group participant may opt for using CPrint, where a captionist uses her or his laptop to transcribe all proceedings in the meeting or lecture, which are then displayed on a laptop for an individual deaf person or on a screen for a group. FM systems mentioned previously are particularly appropriate for classroom situations. FM systems consist of a transmitter worn by the speaker and a receiver worn by the listener. The FM system operates on specific frequencies and allows the speech signal to be delivered with reduced background noise to the child's headset, hearing aids, or cochlear implant. FM systems are utilized in classrooms, lectures, meetings, convention centers, theaters, places of worship, and public meeting spaces. Another tip is to incorporate visual aids if possible, particularly in a classroom setting. Vision is a deaf child's primary channel for receiving information. Making full use of available aids, including captioned films, videotapes, overhead projectors, computer-generated presentations such as PowerPoint, diagrams, and graphics. If print is involved, give the participants time to read before speaking. Places of worship are commonly reported environments where people with hearing impairment still have listening difficulty, despite wearing hearing aids. Providing an assistive listening device, such as an FM amplification system or an induction loop system, can allow children and adults with hearing loss to attend a service, gathering, or performance with comfort and confidence. In this case, the speaker or rabbi will be asked to wear or use a microphone that transmits directly to the deaf person's hearing aid. Another somewhat easier option for congregations or large group settings is an induction loop system. In an induction loop system, a loop wire is permanently installed around a listening area and connects to a microphone used by a speaker. The person talking into the microphone creates a current in the wire, which makes an electromagnetic field in the room, delivering the speaker's voice directly to the listener's hearing aid. This system is compatible with hearing aids, cochlear implants, and headsets, and will encourage these users to attend functions at buildings where it is available. A sign alerting them to its presence, like the one above, should be posted. The hearing aid wearer doesn't have to plug into the hearing loop system. They just have to be seated within the magnetic field it produces, thus permitting any number of people to benefit at the same time. The person's own hearing aid does the work. Individual neck loops, like the one worn by the woman above, can be purchased and made available to congregants who don't wear hearing aids as they enter the building and then be removed before leaving. The hearing loop system will give most hearing aid wearers fuller enjoyment of services, concerts, lectures, and meetings. You may want to engage a sign language interpreter in addition to using assistive listening technology to facilitate communication during services, lectures, meetings, or other group situations. Before requesting an interpreter, keep in mind that an interpreter is a trained professional bound by a code of ethics. Simply knowing sign language does not qualify a person to act as an interpreter. Therefore, using a professional interpreter is best. Some tips to keep in mind when scheduling interpreter services. Treat the interpreter as a professional. It is courteous to introduce the interpreter to the group and explain why he or she is attending. It is also helpful to meet with the interpreter about 15 minutes early to explain what will be covered. If possible, give a copy of handouts and/or the lecture or speech to be interpreted. If a meeting will last more than an hour and a half, it is customary to have 2 interpreters who act on a rotating basis. Provide good lighting for the interpreter. If the interpreting situation requires darkening the room to view slides, videotapes, or films, auxiliary lighting is necessary so that the deaf person can see the interpreter. If a small lamp or spotlight cannot be obtained, check to see if the room lights can be dimmed but still provide enough light to see the interpreter. Permit only one person to speak at a time during group discussions. It is difficult for an interpreter to follow several people speaking at once. And finally, know that the community of people with hearing loss is diverse and proud, and there are many ways to celebrate its heritage. Promoting deaf theater, ASL storytelling, and incorporating sign language into any of your community activities are just a few ways we honor and include. Thank you, and please feel free to contact me with questions or for further information.